This is the Techstart podcast. Tech professionals, remote workers, and entrepreneurs who are leaving the rat race and starting a new life in Southern Colorado.
Well, welcome to the show. I'm here with my co-host Ash Arnold, and today we've got Brock Predovich on the show with us.
Hi guys, thanks for the opportunity to speak on Bravrr.
Yeah, we're excited to hear that. Why don't you just start off a little bit by telling our listeners kind of what Bravrr is and tell a little bit about the product that's behind Bravrr.
Bravrr, we're building diagnostic and therapeutic tools for clinicians and patients. And our first product is Bruxrelief, and it's a tool for dentists to diagnose bruxism disorder, as well as a therapeutic option for patients dealing with bruxism, which is unconscious teeth grinding disorder. So,
do you want to just detail a little bit about how that actually works and how you see it being used?
So the Bruxrelief is a headband. It's a wearable device that connects with your smartphone, and the sensor on it is a novel sensor that we developed. It's or patent pending in the U.S. and China, and it basically detects the temporalis muscle activity during the course of assessment, and basically your temporalis is involved whenever you're clenching or grinding. So this muscle is special importance when you're looking at people when they're grinding their teeth at night or clenching their teeth really hard. Most people don't know this. Beyond the abrasion and erosion to people's teeth and broken teeth, they can suffer from bruxism. They can also suffer from neck pain, jaw pain, teeth pain. They can also suffer from migraines and headaches. And migraines in particular has a high comorbidity with bruxism. A lot of people think that migraines is a chemical problem in their brain, a neurological problem, but it's actually a myofascial muscle problem that's causing these migraines to spur up during the course of a day.
That's super fascinating. Super fascinating. So, I mean, how did this happen? Do you wake up one morning and be like, I need to find some kind of bruxism relief, and I want to change the world that way, or like, what's the story for this behind this?
In a roundabout way, I did wake up one day and thought this. So a few years ago, I just decided to kind of went through a life experience, one of those experiences that you decide you're just going to change everything in your life and go a different direction. But I guess I'll kind of start from the beginning of it. I made a decision that I wanted to do something fun and also just kind of rejuvenate my soul, I guess. And I found out that there was a really bad earthquake in Nepal in 2015, and I decided to go to Nepal and do volunteer work to help rebuild a school there in one of the mountain villages there. And while I went there, I think it was my first day that I arrived. I woke up really early and I went for this really, really long run, and I just kept running. I was in Kathmandu and just seeing all the sights, and I just was energized by that. And I just got to this place where it was kind of a junction in the road, and there was this mountain stupa in front of me, and there's prayer wheels at the base of it, and there's Buddhists walking by, and there's the native Nepali, and it was just a sight that just overwhelmed me, in a moment that overwhelmed me. I still kind of get a little emotional about it today, but something hit me in the middle of the street right there, and it just caused me to pause and just something came to me and just said, like, this is what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be helping people. You're supposed to be living an incredible life. You're supposed to be living an extraordinary life. And that moment just stuck with me. It stuck with me, even till today. Just that my life, our lives as individuals are meant to be extraordinary. And so I think that just kind of stuck with me. And then after the volunteer work, I stayed around Nepal for a little while and just did some hiking and a bunch of other things. And then I went to Bali, Indonesia after that. And I just went around the island for 3 weeks, and I found that there's other entrepreneurs there. There's digital nomads, and just it's paradise. And it seemed like it had like a great, infrastructure for me. I'm an entrepreneur. I love creating businesses and chasing our dreams, and to find other people that were like that. And also it's, paradise as well. I wanted to grab that. And so while I was there, I booked a one-way ticket back to Bali because I already had my return ticket home. So I booked a trip back to Bali 2 months later and basically went home, sold everything I owned, and moved to Bali, Indonesia. And I went there to kind of chase the digital nomad life. I was a marketing consultant online. And basically after I got there, this idea of chasing my bliss, about a month after I got there, I got into a really serious motorcycle accident. Got a really bad concussion, broken bones and stitches. And then that, put me in the hospital, obviously. And then a month after that, I got dengue fever, which put me back in the hospital. And then a month after that, I ruptured a disc in my lower back, and then spent about 2 months in my bed on painkillers before finally I just had to get surgery. And so I actually found a hospital in Bangkok, Thailand, went there and got the surgery, and then spent about 2 months in recovery after that, doing physical therapy and stuff. But all these things happening in such a short time frame of about 4 months left me completely stressed out. And so that's when I started waking up each morning with this pain in my jaw and a migraine. And I was like, what is this? What's causing this? And so I did research, but I also recalled, people from my past that had this similar condition, and it was bruxism. So I was a behavioral scientist in the Air Force. And so I knew about that kind of moment where I woke up and thought of, I'm going to change this, was I had this, knowledge of biofeedback therapy as one of my, lessons in college and psychology. And I thought, well, maybe I can create a device that I can use to change this behavior. How biofeedback therapy works is it makes you more aware of unconscious behaviors that your body emits. And so it makes you aware of these behaviors, and so that way you can change them, even on a subconscious level. So I did some research on how I could do this. I've always been kind of a nerd and, love building things. And so I, found all the parts that I needed. I went to Singapore to a robotics shop there, got all the parts I needed, and I basically started building my first prototype on the bathroom floor of my motel, like soldering all the electrical parts together in this, basically this development kit. And I started writing the code in that hotel room, and I basically created my first prototype. I used it for about 4 weeks, and my bruxism symptoms went away. And so that's when I started doing more research. I thought, well, maybe there's other people that suffer from this problem, and they need a solution for it. And so that's when I did, my initial search, found on Amazon that there's over 640,000 searches every single month on Amazon for bruxism products. So that was just a huge market that told me like a lot of people are hurting from this and they need help. So that was kind of my first part of my journey in terms of how I created this and how I saw, an opportunity here. And then, later I went through just different accelerator programs and, did interviews with patients and dentists that told me there's an even bigger opportunity within this market, and that's what I've been working on now.
That's incredible. It's fascinating to me that they say that passion is born from pain, but in your situation, it literally was.
Yeah.
And to see you not just accept defeat, but not only make something good out of some really terrible circumstances that were beyond your control, but to actually not only turn it around for good for yourself, but also turn that into an opportunity to help other people as well. I think that's incredible.
I think Viktor Frankl actually talks about this. He was a Nazi concentration camp, one of the Jews in the concentration camp, but was also like a psychologist. He has a book called Man's Search for Meaning, and he says what develops depression, sadness, all these things, is not being able to tie meaning to pain. So when you go through pain, when you go through struggle, if there's not meaning behind it, it just becomes, depression, defeat, sadness, all that. And I think that's just naturally what my brain is inclined to do. Is when there is struggle, is to find a meaning behind it, find a purpose behind it. Why did this happen? What am I supposed to learn from it? What am I supposed to do with this?
Yeah.
Didn't he also say in Man's Search for Meaning? Is he the gentleman that said, the man's right to choose? Wasn't that the quote? I think everything can be taken away from a man, but one thing, his ability to choose. Is that it? I can't remember the quote, but it's interesting you said that. He has impacted a lot of entrepreneurs. I know those quotes are a really big deal, because usually something so innovative comes from the most extraordinarily painful experiences in life, and it never ceases to amaze us what amazing advances happen out of some really difficult hardships.
And just even as being entrepreneurs, like what sane person would do what we do, would like go through all this struggle and like just the ups and downs, the roller coaster that is entrepreneurship. Like if you're a sane person, you're looking at a reasonable choice, like it doesn't make sense. But that's, pretty much every entrepreneur that's been successful has talked about this, is that, there's purpose in the pain. And that if you find your purpose, if you find your passion, that's what you need, because there are going to be dark times. If you don't have that passion, you're never going to make it. If you're just in it for the money, if you're just in it for the accolades, it's never going to work. So you have to find passion.
You're absolutely right, and I think what's most extraordinary about the entrepreneurial journey itself, but also just being in business as well, is knowing that when you get enough experience, kind of being good at what you're doing, and you learn how to dig deep enough time in your career, when you start to do it for yourself and you start to do it towards something that is working towards something you're truly passionate about, you can go so much deeper. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things about why we put ourselves through it, right? Is just how deep it can go.
I think for me, I want I want the dream life. I consciously am working to create the dream that I have in my head of places I want to go, places I want to live, all that kind of stuff. But I think for me, entrepreneurship is like, it's this path that, should you go forward through it, you have no choice but to grow and to develop and to become more on every level, because to be successful in it, you need to become just very whole, very centered, very aware. If you're not that, you might have temporary success, but it will not last. So you're forced to develop yourself as an entrepreneur, I believe.
That's a really good point. And kind of one question that I had that ties into that is, you've intentionally inserted yourself into other cultures and other ways of looking at the world. And I'm curious to hear, how has that grown you, and how has that shaped your kind of entrepreneurial journey? How has that shaped your journey with bruxism relief? I'd say it's shaped me a lot. One of the biggest
ways in which it did that. Probably, definitely happened in Nepal. It's happened other places in different ways, but in Nepal, while we were in this village, helping this village rebuild the school for the kids, the things that we'd see, like the people lost their homes. They lost, in a lot of cases, everything. Half the house fell down and killed their husband or their child or their wife. And to walk through these streets and to build the school and to see these people every day where they had nothing, and it's basically what happened to them is like insult to injury. Like the earthquake was one thing, but just their lives in general are hard. They have nothing, and you would stop, or you'd be walking in the street, and you would see one of them, and you'd say namaste, like that's hello, and how are you, but basically all in one. And they would stop. Have this big smile on their face. I get like emotional about it even now.
You're getting me emotional about it.
Big smile on their face, and they'd say namaste back, and like they would be present in that moment and give you a piece of their heart, a piece of their kindness. And to see someone that had nothing and they were still happy, and I could see that. I could see the way the villagers interacted with each other, how they interacted with their families. They were happy and they had nothing. And I looked at my life and all the things that I had along the way that I didn't appreciate, and that changed me. And so seeing that, and that not only impacted me in that moment looking backward retrospectively, but also impacted me looking forward in terms of all the things that I've gone through in this past 3 years. Just even on that journey, I often reminded myself of how hard things could be, no matter what I was going through, in this journey and will go through in this journey. I looked at those moments and just said, like, you can choose differently. You can choose to be happy. You can choose to look at the silver lining here. You can choose to smile when all you want to do is just be frustrated and curse a couple times and be mad at the situation. You can choose differently. You can choose to look at this in a different way. So that was one of the biggest moments for me, is just being in a village and just watching what real happiness is, like watching what really matters.
That is really so beautiful. Beautifully put. That I don't think I could have said that more eloquently myself, but it's such a refreshing concept to see a group of people still stop and live life and get back to what it's supposed to be. That's so refreshing to hear. Interestingly, I wanted to touch on something about what you've done with your advances in bruxism. I've read a lot of research about chronic fatigue syndrome and a lot about PTSD and a lot about these kind of trauma experiences that somehow sit right on the cusp of that disease. And my take on it is so interesting. Do you feel, I know your bread and butter has been in sensor technology, if I understand correctly from your background. Are you interested to see what that can do for more of the chronic illnesses, bringing that relief? Or what's your opinion on the contribution to that in the advancement of kind of working to try to work people through these really painful diseases that, I mean, they're really debilitating. I think anybody can get up every day and be prepared to be their best self, but when they get those really bad migraines and everything, and it turns out that this is really a neurological, kind of facial muscle thing, what it does to their psyche and whatnot. How are you feeling about just kind of the advancement and maybe taking this advancement and pivoting it towards something else down the road one day?
Yeah. So the mission behind Bravrr, the broader scope of things is that Bravrr is about helping people reduce stress, eliminate fear, and conquer past trauma. That's our mission. And stress, anxiety, fear, they manifest themselves in various ways in our bodies, in the moment, but also long term. You can look at, I believe there's a huge tie between stress and cancer and just a lot of other problems that we go through, just in terms of our overall health. And so what I look at when I see the opportunity for Bravrr in our longer journey is that right now there is this opportunity, there is this market of bruxism, and I see that in terms of the diagnostic solution that we're offering to dentists. We have a channel to reach the people that are our end customers, that are our target market for Bravrr. People dealing with stress, dealing with fear, dealing with anxiety. They're suffering from something. We're helping them become aware of it, and then also helping them change that behavior. So that's the long-term mission of Bravrr, is much broader in terms of how we're helping people with their psychology, how they're helping them become more aware, less stress, and better able to take on their day. But right now, yes, we're focusing on bruxism, but we do see other opportunities and other products we want to create in the future, helping people with these negative emotions and how they can kind of switch their minds to better deal with their life and their day.
So I want to jump back in your journey a little bit from in your move from Bali to rural Colorado. Do you want to fill us in a little bit about that part of your journey and
Yeah, the short answer is I ran out of money. The long answer is So I went on this journey to develop this device and get it out there on the market. And as soon as I saw the opportunity in the market, I started applying to every Accelerator program I could find. It didn't really matter to me which country it was in or where it was at. I started applying to all these things, started sending emails to any investor I could find, and with little luck, but I ended up finding getting offered this opportunity to go to Moldova for this pre-acceleration program. And the story behind that was that you go through the program for 3 months, and at the end of it, you have an opportunity to pitch in front of investors, and then also have an opportunity to go to the actual accelerator program that was in Netherlands, where they would invest in your company, and you go through another kind of growth phase of the program. So I went to this program, and just long story short, pitch day came, and I did really well, but there wasn't really any real investors that were in the audience, I would say. And then we did get an opportunity offered to join the Netherlands program, but in that time, I also got an offer to go to New Mexico and join a health accelerator program there. And the promise of that program was that if you do well, they invest like $3,000 just to cover your traveling expenses, but if you do well at the end of it, you'll get $50,000 in investment, and kind of that's kind of the target I needed to develop the technology. And so I went to this program, and again, long story short, I did very well, but they wanted to actually, instead of investing $50,000, they wanted to invest $100,000, and they also put a requirement into their offer that I had to raise $150 more, and that they really were pushing me to raise the rest of the money from their angel syndicate that was right across the street from them. So they're valuing the business at $1 million, and I looked at it, and where I was still kind of really at the idea stage. I didn't really have a good beta product or a beta prototype or anything like that. And I looked at it, and I would be giving away, with interest and stuff like that, it would have been about 30% of the business right away at the idea stage, and it just didn't make sense. And so I was in Indonesia at the time. I had just gotten married, and we didn't have any money left. And this opportunity, I thought, would have kept it going and being able to develop that technology, just fell through. And so I said the best option for us now is we move back home. I move in with my parents, and basically spent the next year just keeping going on the business. Like I'd used that time to basically develop our beta device, but I recruited an app developer who's on my team, and then an electrical engineer that helped me, create the electronics behind the device. So I used that time, but to have that time, what I ended up doing during that time as a year long, was building garden sheds and greenhouses just for people. When I moved back, when I was a kid, I built dog houses, greenhouses, different things like that, and made some money from that. So I had done this before when I was younger, and so I just looked at it from a life hacking situation, as I could have gone and been a marketing consultant, done that for many years, and made money from that. But whenever I do that, it just requires a lot of my time, and a lot of the clients expect a lot of your time. And I knew with building a greenhouse or a garden shed, it would take about 5-6 days. I'd make enough money from that I could just eke by and keep the business going, keep this dream going, and then hopefully I would find an investor in that time. I did not think it was going to last a year. I thought for sure we've proven that this business is an investable business, and obviously I did really well in that program I went through. So I thought the next investor is coming shortly. But yeah, it was a long year, and just a lot of early mornings, very cold days, working outside, and hot days as well in the summer. But just working outside and just building garden sheds and greenhouses. So, but that was enough. It kept things going. Got us to where the money that I made, I could reinvest in the business and also take care of my family, and basically get us to our beta prototype. And I think that was the big thing that got us into the Hacks program. Is just that we finally had something. I finally had something I could have in my hands and show to investors that this thing is real. We're a team that is proven that we're a solid team, and we're not the type of team that's going to give up halfway along the journey. And this is, we're going somewhere. So that was it was a very trying year, but definitely worth it now.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you kind of pulling back the curtain, because I think many of us understand that there's hard work involved in some of these projects, but we kind of distance ourselves from that. And hearing your story, I think, is a great encouragement for any listeners who are in that middle, that long year period where maybe they've had some short wins, and now it's kind of like this valley that they're going through, and it's like, when are we going to get to the other side? I really appreciate you opening up and sharing about that part of the journey.
I think when I was younger, and it's also a product of age as well. I think when I was younger, the whole thing with Silicon Valley startups and all this, things that you would read. I think there was a book, maybe even, that was fail fast. Fail fast. If it doesn't work, then go on to the next thing. And I tried that. I tried that a lot when I was young. I did things and failed fast, and then on to the next thing. And then as I got older, I think that moment in the street, I talked about in Kathmandu, it didn't speak to me anymore. That if you have something that you're this passionate about, where you want to help people and change people's lives, help people live an extraordinary life, if you have something that big, then it's not worth failing fast at. It's worth it to keep going. And so that pulled me through the bigger mission behind Bravrr. I think if it was just bruxism, if it was just this device, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if the sane part of me would have won. But the bigger mission is just kept pulling me through that there's a purpose to this. There's a reason. There's a lot of millions of people that you can help with what you're doing.
Yeah.
I think that's the best advice I've ever heard, Brock. Just slow it down and let it grow, let it morph. And there is this huge rush on startups to get to market faster than you can to 3 and just get a product out there. But the fact that you still appreciate that percolation process is really, I think what puts you on the board for success, and is what's so magical about your story is having the wisdom to know that these concepts need time to percolate.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the again, kind of going back to that Viktor Frankl, I guess, idea, is just I started to look at my life probably at least maybe 10 years ago, but I really started looking at my life, after my 30s, is that, live your life like you're writing a book, write a damn good book. And so, each of these things that happen, each of these things that I went through, and there's many more behind this story that we just don't have time to share, but there's many things that happened along the way, just like moments of just utter, feelings of destruction, of like, what am I doing? How am I going to make it past this? Like this, why am I doing this? But what often came to me is just, this is just a chapter, and this is one day this will be a really good story, and how crazy that is to think in some moments. But again, that's just another thing that can pull you through. And so each of these things that did happen, each of these times I did have to dig down, I looked at it as opportunity. And like what changed in me years ago as well is just, I started looking at my life of like each thing that would happen, take a moment and just ask yourself, like, what am I supposed to learn from this? What am I supposed to learn from this? And there was moments where I would call out to God, to the universe, and like, what more do I need to learn? Like, haven't I learned enough? Like, what more? Like, what am I supposed to learn from this? But always there would be something that would come. There would be something, even just from a moment of, learning how strong I am. That's what would come from it. So if you do live your life like you're writing a book, and I think entrepreneurs need that as part of their framework for their journey. Live your life like you're writing a book. Write a damn good book, and everything that does happen along the way, ask yourself before you start complaining, or even after you complain, I guess, somewhere along that, you need to ask yourself, what am I supposed to learn from this? And when you do that, it changes your outlook, it changes your framework, and you start to look for the opportunity, whether it's opportunity of the business or opportunity just in your own personal growth. I believe that we're all on this path of life simply to have experiences, simply to grow as individuals, grow in terms of our souls. That's just my own personal belief. And so if you look at your life like everything that happens for a reason, and that you're supposed to learn something from it, then it makes the journey exciting and delicious. It's delicious in terms of each thing that you go through, even if it's hard. What are you supposed to taste from it? What are you supposed to get from it? It changes your perspective and changes your framework for your life. So that's another kind of mental trick, I guess, that I've developed that makes this journey more consumable, I would say.
Yeah. That's fantastic. I feel like we've just tapped into the surface of the well, just the top of the well that we've got, but we're running out of time. Thank you so much for spending time with us, Brock. What's the best place for people to stay in touch with what happens with Bravrr and find out more about what you're up to?
Right now, our website, bravrr.com, is just just a landing page, kind of just talking about the general mission. But if they want to stay up to date on the journey, most likely just go to bruxrelief.com, and that we have a blog on the website. And I've been, because it was a Kickstarter campaign, that was another part of the journey that launched this as well. I've been pretty religious about updating our backers, but also, potential investors and just supporters on the bruxrelief.com website each month through our blog. And I've been very candid as well as far as the journey, letting them know the details of the journey and just the ups and downs and stuff like that. So that would be a great place they can kind of tune in and see what's going on.
That sounds awesome.
Bruxrelief.com.
Bruxrelief.com, and we'll put a link to that in the show notes as well. So, Brock, once again, thanks so much for spending time with us, for sharing your journey and your wisdom, and really appreciate you being on the show.
Thanks for listening to the Techstart podcast. Find out more at techstart.fremontedc.com.